Hello everyone. Today we are going to do CAT 2024 slot 3. The remaining two RCs, RC number 3 and RC number 4. Hi, this is Shubhayu from IMS Lucknow. Let's get started with the RCs. Moving on to the first slide, this is the first RC that we are having regarding language. Now, what is the particular subject that has been discussed here? If we go to the first line, it says language becomes endangered and die out of many reasons. So what is the particular topic here? The topic that we are having is that of language. Now it says language becomes endangered and die out for many reasons. Sadly, the physical annihilation of communities of native speakers of a language is all too often the cause of language extinction. So basically, we're talking about this particular language extinction. In North America, European colonists brought death and destruction to many Native American communities. This was followed by US federal policies restricting the use of indigenous languages, including the removal of Native children from their communities to federal boarding schools where Native language and cultural practices were prohibited. देखिए ये पैराग्राफ जो हम लोग का जो अपना जो लैंग्वेज होता है जो नेटिव पीपल जो उस जगह का लोग होते हैं उसका जो लैंग्वेज उसका वो लैंग्वेज को कैसे अ, खत्म कर दिया जाता है इस बारे में बोला जा रहा है. It says, if we continue reading, as many as 75% of language spoken in the territories that became the United States have gone extinct, with slightly better language survival rates in Central and South America. तो साउथ सेंट्रल एंड साउथ अमेरिका थोड़ा सा ज़्यादा है बट जो जिसको हम यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका बोलते हैं उसमें जो नेटिव लैंग्वेजेस था उसमें 75% ऑफ लैंग्वेजेस जा चुका है. Even without physical annihilation and prohibitions against language, even without physical annihilation and prohibitions against language use, the language of the dominant cultures may drive other languages into extinction. Young people see education, jobs, culture, and technology associated with the dominant language and focus their attention on that language. The largest language killers are English, Spanish, Portuguese, French, Russian, Hindi, Chinese, and all of which have privileged status as dominant languages, threatening minority language. Now देखिए जो माइनॉरिटी लैंग्वेज है जो नेटिव लैंग्वेज है वो लोग सीखते नहीं है क्योंकि उसके उसके रिलेटेड जॉब नहीं होते हैं. जो मेजर लैंग्वेजेस होते हैं जैसे कि यहाँ पे एग्जांपल दिया गया है इंग्लिश, स्पेनिश, पोर्टुगीज, फ्रेंच, रशियन, हिंदी एंड चाइनीज का, ये सब बड़े लैंग्वेज होते हैं, इसके रिलेटेड जॉब्स होते हैं. सो पीपल आर मोर कीन टू लर्न दीज लैंग्वेजेस rather than retaining their native languages. Hence, these big languages also work as killers of small languages. Is everybody clear with this first paragraph? Okay, so we will move on to the second paragraph. The second paragraph says that once second paragraph says that when we lose a language, we lose the worldview, culture, and knowledge of the people who spoke it, constituting a loss to all humanity. People around the world live in direct contact with their native environment, their habitats. When the language they speak goes extinct, the rest of humanity loses their knowledge of that environment, their wisdom about the relationship between local plants and illness, their philosophical and religious beliefs, as well as their native cultural expressions in music, visual art, and in poetry that has enriched both the speakers of that language and others who would have encountered that culture. तो ये सेकंड पैराग्राफ है, ये सेकंड पैराग्राफ क्या बोल रहा है कि जब हम कोई लैंग्वेज लूज करते हैं उसके साथ जो जुड़ा हुआ कस्टम्स होता है, जो प्रैक्टिसेस होता है, जो मेडिकल पर्टिकुलर नॉलेज होता है, म्यूजिक, विजुअल आर्ट एंड पोइट्री का नॉलेज होता है, वो भी धीरे धीरे चला जाता है, क्योंकि वो लैंग्वेज नहीं है तो बाकी सब जो एसोसिएटेड है वो भी हम लोग को और जानकारी नहीं मिलता है इसके बारे में. So second paragraph is talking about the loss that we may have if we are not having, say for example, language acumen. Now, if we move to the next particular paragraph, it says, if we move to this particular paragraph, it says that when we lose a language, we lose the world view. Just a Yeah. If you go to the third paragraph, it says, when we, uh, as educators deeply immersed in the liberal art, we believe that educating students broadly in all facets of language and culture. So basically third paragraph क्या बोल रहा है, third paragraph यही बोल रहा है कि people who are educators, उसका belief क्या है, believe that educating students broadly in all facets of language and culture, language का हर particular तरह उसको kind of जानना चाहिए, yields immense reward. Some individuals educated in the liberal arts tradition will pursue advanced study in linguistics and become actively engaged in language preservation, setting out for the Amazon, for example, with video recording equipments to interview the last surviving elders in a community to record and document a language spoken by no children. सो बेसिकली बोल रहे जो लिबरल आर्ट पढ़ेगा, जो जो भाषा के बारे में पढ़ेगा, वो कहाँ जाएगा, वो अमेजन का जंगल में जाएगा, जाके वहाँ का जो नेटिव लोग हैं उससे बात करेंगे और उसका जो लैंग्वेज है उसको जानने का कोशिश करेंगे, क्योंकि बहुत जल्दी ये लैंग्वेज में और कोई बात नहीं करेगा. Coming to the penultimate paragraph, it says, certainly though, certainly though, the vast majority of the students will not pursue this kind of activity. वो जो liberal student के बारे में बोला गया है, majority of the people will not do this kind of thing. क्यों करेंगे? क्योंकि उसमें ना तो जॉब्स मिलेगा, ना तो डेवलपमेंट है. डेवलपमेंट है तो दूसरा जो मेजर लैंग्वेजेस है, जैसे कि यहाँ पे बोला गया है इंग्लिश, स्पेनिश, पोर्टुगीज के बारे में बोला गया है, फ्रेंच पर्टिकुलर जगह पे है, तो लोग पढ़ेंगे तो यही लैंग्वेज पढ़ेंगे. देखिए ये जो पर्टिकुलर लैंग्वेजेस दिया हुआ है, तो बेसिकली लोग पढ़ेंगे तो इसी लैंग्वेज को पढ़ेंगे. Let's come back to the penultimate paragraph. It says, certainly though the vast majority of students will not pursue this kind of activity, मतलब वो अमेज़न का जंगल में नहीं जाएंगे. For these students, a liberal arts education is absolutely critical from the twin perspective of language extinction and global citizenship. When students study languages others than their own, they are sensitized to the existence of different cultural perspectives and practices. तो अगर कोई पर्टिकुलर दूसरा भाषा पढ़ता है तो उसमें क्या क्या बेनिफिट होता है, ये है आपका बेनिफिट नंबर 1. When students study language other than their own, they are sensitized to the existence of different cultural perspectives and practices. ठीक है, ये हो गया फर्स्ट बेनिफिट. With such an education, students are more likely to be able to articulate insights into their own cultural biases, be more empathetic to individuals of other cultures, communicate successfully across linguistics and cultural differences, consider and resolve questions in a way that reflects multiple cultural perspectives, and ultimately extend support to people, programs, practices, and policies that support the preservation of endangered language. तो अगर कोई ऐसा लिबरल पर्टिकुलर लैंग्वेज पे काइंड ऑफ पढ़ा है, उसका क्या बेनिफिट है, उसका क्या से फॉर एग्जांपल काम वो कर सकता है, दिस पर्टिकुलर पैराग्राफ टॉक्स अबाउट ऑल दोज बेनिफिट्स, कि वो हमें दूसरा भाषा समझने का पर्टिकुलर उपाय बता सकता है, हाउ टू अंडरस्टैंड द कल्चर, हाउ टू अंडरस्टैंड द पर्सपेक्टिव, and how to say for example support people, programs and practices and and policies that support the preservation of endangered language. तो ये पैराग्राफ उसी के बारे में बता रहा है. अगर हम लास्ट पैराग्राफ में आ जाएंगे, इट सेज there is ample evidence that such preservation can work in languages spiraling towards extinction. For example, Navajo, Cree, and Inuit communities have established schools in which these languages are the language of instructions, and the number of speakers of each has increased. So basically, this is just an effort to say, for example, give support to this particular in kind of native languages. So there are some particular schools which has come up on regarding where the instructions are these native languages of Navajo, Cree, and Inuit. So if we go to this particular paragraph, this particular paragraph, what is it talking about? It is talking about it is talking about various kind of languages which are becoming extinct. What reasons why they are becoming extinct? They are becoming extinct because of very prominent other languages which are termed as language killers, and they are becoming extinct because there is not much particular jobs regarding them. And it is also talking about the benefits of liberal arts and what will happen if students of liberal art uh, are kind of involved with this particular preservation of indigenous or native languages. I hope this paragraph is clear enough. चलिए हम क्वेश्चन पे चलते हैं. The question number 1, it says that in context of the passage, which one of the following is the hypothetical scenario, if true, not an example of the kind of loss that occurs when the language becomes extinct? Now देखिए ये जो particular paragraph है, question है, इसको आपको थोड़ा सा ठीक तरह से पढ़ना नहीं तो ये question easy है, but फिर भी वो गलत हो सकता है. Once again, let us read this question together. It says, in the context of the passage, which one of the following hypothetical scenarios? So we are talking about some hypothetical scenario, matlab scenario which is not exactly true, but we assume to be true in order to understand something. If true, is not an example of the kind of loss that occurs when a language becomes extinct. जब language become extinct हो जाता है, तब क्या क्या loss face करना पड़ता है. So the paragraph says that when we lose a language, we lose a connection with their particular visual art and poetry. If we come to the second paragraph, which starts with this particular part, when we lose a language and go to these particular parts, music, visual arts and poetry, native cultural expression, ये पार्ट पढ़ेंगे तो आपको यहाँ से आंसर मिल जाएगा. देखिए ऑप्शन नंबर 1 says the Nicobarese language describes 20 different moods of the ocean. By the time the last speaker is educated in the central board school, they will have forgotten their language. So this is definitely a loss because अगर 20 different moods है, अगर वो language चला जाता है तो हम इस mood के बारे में, इस 20 different moods के बारे में हम जान नहीं पाएंगे. If we skip option number B and go to C, it says the Andamanese language has a word to describe someone who has lost a stepsister. When the language dies, we will lose the concept of the word and the emotion it evokes. तो ये भी language वाला loss है. अगर वो particular जो Andamanese language वो extinct हो जाता है, तो हम इस बारे में जान नहीं पाएंगे. Option number D, which says the Inuits of Alaska have 35 different words to describe the texture of snow. When the language becomes extinct, we will lose the understanding of nature. So option number D किस बारे में बोल रहा है? Once again, वही Inuits of Alaska, 35 different words of snow. If this particular language of the Inuits become extinct, हम उसके बारे में नहीं जान पाएंगे. Now come to option number B, which says the Lamkins of Manipur have only 3 remaining native speakers of language. सही जा रहा है, it is almost going the correct direction. But ये part गलत हो जाएगा. When they die, we will lose one more group from the government list of indigenous people. The question is not about government list of indigenous people, but rather about the loss of language. And hence, option number B जो है, This is my correct answer, and this is the not wala example. So question number one, correct answer is option number B. Is everybody clear with question number one? Okay. Moving on to question number two. It says which one of the following hypothetical scenarios. Once again, we get this particular question which talks about a hypothetical scenario. मतलब जो true नहीं है, जो हम मान रहे हैं true है, to prove certain things. If true, would most strongly weaken. Undermine का मतलब हो जाएगा weaken the central idea of the passage. ठीक है. What is the central idea of the passage? That हमें ये जो particular native language है उसको preserve करना है, क्योंकि वहां पे हमें बहुत कुछ सीखने के लिए मिलता है. Now, if we go to all the options, first one says most liberal arts students will pursue jobs in publishing and human resources management rather than doctorates in linguistics. ठीक है. So ठीक है. This can be, say, for example, one of the particular streams that they kind of pursue. This will definitely, say, for example, not let them follow the particular linguistics wala particular part. Option number C says schools that teach endangered languages can preserve the language only for generations. But ठीक है, I understand only for generation, but फिर भी कुछ generations के लिए तो preserve हो जाएगा ना. तो ये most strongly undermine नहीं होगा. Option number D, recording a dying language that has only a few remaining speakers freezes it in time. It stops further evolving. सही बात, it does not evolve further, but at least हम लोग के पास तो proof रहेगा ना about that particular language. So option number A, C, and D does not strongly undermine the central idea of the passage. Now let us go to option number B. It says the liberal arts education requires that, in addition to being fluent in English, students gain fluency in two of the top five most spoken languages globally. Now, what is it saying? It is saying that uh, in addition to being fluent in English, सिर्फ English पढ़ने से नहीं होगा, English के साथ they should be fluent in two of the top five most spoken language. अगर top five most spoken language है, तो वो native language नहीं है, indigenous language नहीं है. And hence अगर ये करना पड़े, तो there is no point of it will kind of weaken this particular central idea of the given paragraph. अगर liberal arts student है, तो उसको focus करना चाहिए नेटिव लैंग्वेज पे, नॉट ऑन द फेमस लैंग्वेजेस और द मोस्ट स्पोकन लैंग्वेजेस. एंड हेंस ऑप्शन नंबर बी, इफ ट्रू, मोस्ट स्ट्रांगली weakens the given paragraph. Is everybody clear with question number 2? Okay, let us go to question number 3. Is it can be inferred from the passage that it is likely South America had a slightly better language survival rate than North America for all the following reasons except. Now, for this particular question, हम थोड़ा सा यहाँ पे चले जाएंगे. We'll go to the first paragraph itself. यहाँ से हम थोड़ा सा पढ़ लेंगे यहाँ तक. So what does it say? It says in North America, European colonists brought death and destruction to many Native American communities. This was followed by US federal policies restricting the use of indigenous language, including the removal of native children from their communities to federal boarding schools where native languages and culture practices were prohibited. As many as 75% of the languages spoken in the territories that became the United States have gone extinct, with slightly better language survival rate in Central and South America. Now, अगर हम यहाँ पे आ जाएंगे, we are looking for, it is likely South America had a slightly better language survival rate in North America for all the following reasons except. First point, it says European colonies allowed children to native speakers to stay at home with their families. This option number A is not an except answer because it is said that if you go to this particular part, it says including the removal of native children from their communities to federal boarding schools. So this is one of the reason why America lost the native languages. So option number A is not an acceptable answer. It is one of the reasons which may say, for example, lead South America to have a better kind of revival rate or retention rate. Option number B, it says the colonial government was unable to mainstream the locals. Yes, this can also be one of the reasons because America was able to mainstream the particular, or they put effort to mainstream the locals. If you look at option number C, it says that not many native speakers were killed by European colonists. If you come to this part, it clearly says European colonists brought death and destruction to many Native American communities. So option number C यहीं से आ जाता है. If you look at option number D, it says locals were provided job opportunities in the colonial administration. Now इस बारे में paragraph में कुछ mention नहीं है. If you look at this particular part, the paragraph does not talk about this thing. And hence we can say option number D is the correct answer, or the except वाला answer for which साउथ अमेरिका का जो पर्टिकुलर बेटर लैंग्वेज सर्वाइवल रेट है वो cannot be kind of considered to be option number D. Is everybody clear with question number 3? Let us move on to question number 4. Is the author believes that a liberal arts education combined with participation in language preservation empowers students in all the following except that. Once again क्या question है, ये लिबरल एजुकेशन क्या क्या करता है, जो नहीं करता है वो हम लोग का आंसर होगा. Where do we find this particular answer? If we go to this particular part, the penultimate paragraph, which says certainly though the vast majority of students will not pursue this kind of activity. So if you go further, you have all the particular things mentioned here. It says for these students liberal arts education is absolutely critical from the twin perspective of language extinction and global citizenship. When students study language other than their own, they are sensitized to the existence of different cultural perspectives and practices. With such an education, students are more likely to be able to articulate insights into their own cultural bias, to be more empathetic to individuals of other cultures, communicate successfully across linguistics and cultural differences, consider resolve questions in a way that reflects multiple cultural perspectives, and ultimately extends support to people, programs and practices. तो अगर कोई लिबरल आर्ट को लेके पढ़ेगा तो ये सब वो कर सकता है. कौन सा वाला नहीं कर सकता है? Let us go to the options. Option number A, overcome cultural barriers to communication. Yes, it is given in this paragraph. When you talk about this line, it says communicate successfully across linguistics. It is talking about option number A. Option number B says learn different languages. Definitely, अगर वो liberal arts से है, वो दूसरा वाला native का भाषा सीख रहा है, so definitely they are learning different languages. Option number D says develop a better understanding of their own culture. Yes, the paragraph also talks about this line, able to articulate insights into their own culture, biases and more empathetic to individuals. So option number D is also there. ऑप्शन नंबर सी जो बोल रहा है वो बोल रहा है कि एस्टैब्लिश स्कूल्स टू प्रिजर्व लैंग्वेजेस spiraling towards extinction. ये पैराग्राफ में नहीं है. They will go and the liberal education people will go and open schools. This is not there in the given paragraph. This one is the except wala part. Now, if I go to option number C, C is the correct answer for question number 4. Please keep this in mind that 4 opening of the school factor is there in the last paragraph, but it is not, say for example, one of the things which the particular empowered student will do, liberal education students will do in order to preserve the language. So question number 4, correct answer is option number C. Is everybody clear with question number 4? Okay, so overall, if I consider the difficulty level of this passage, it is not very difficult, but still, this can kind of pose challenge to many people as well. Let us go to the next paragraph. देखिए नेक्स्ट पैराग्राफ किस बारे में है, दिस इज अबाउट स्पेस कम्युनिटी. It says there is a group in space community who view the solar system not as an opportunity to expand human potential, but as a nature preserve. Forever the provenance of elite group of scientists and their sanitary robotic probes. These planetary protection advocates call for avoiding harmful contamination of celestial bodies. Under this regime, NASA incurs great expense sterilizing robotic probes in order to prevent the contamination of entirely theoretical biosphere. So, what is the first paragraph talking about? The first paragraph says uh, people send particular rockets and kind of lunar kind of vehicles to the to space. तो वो वहां पे जाते हैं और lot of effort is made so that वहां पे कोई particular infection ना फैले. The author seems to be a bit sarcastic regarding this when he says these planetary protection advocates call for avoiding harmful contamination of celestial bodies. ठीक है, बट लास्ट में ये भी बोल रहा है कि entirely theoretical biosphere मतलब practical existence of life वहां पे नहीं है, तो हम उसका सही फॉर एग्जाम्पल जो कंटामिनेशन रोकेंगे किसके लिए रोकेंगे. The author is questioning this thing in the first paragraph. Once again, this paragraph is about space contamination. It is about the sanity of spending so much particular money over sanitizing space and keeping the space germ free or say for example other pathogen free जब वहां पे कोई life है ही नहीं. If we come to the next paragraph, it says transporting bacteria would matter if Mars were the vital world once imagined by astronomers who mistook optical illusions for canals. Nobody wants to expose Martians to measles, but sadly, robotic exploration reveals a bleak, rusted landscape lacking oxygen and flooded with radiation, ready to sterilize any earthly microbes. Simple life might exist underground or down at the bottom of the deep canyon, but it has been very hard to find that with robot. The upsides from human exploration and development of Mars clearly outweigh the welfare of purely speculative Martian fungi. So once again, ये पैराग्राफ में वही बात ऑथर बोल रहा है कि हम मार्स को तभी प्रिजर्व करेंगे ना जब हम मार्स में लाइफ को ढूंढ पाएंगे. जो पहले लगता था कि मार्स में बहुत लाइफ है, ठीक है, अभी तक उसका कोई पर्टिकुलर साइन मिला नहीं है. एंड हिंस व्हेन यू काइंड ऑफ ट्राई टू सैनिटाइज मार्स और काइंड ऑफ स्टॉप डिजीजेस टू स्प्रेड इन मार्स, तो किस पे डिजीज स्प्रेड करेगा अगर वहां पे कोई है ही नहीं. सो पैराग्राफ नंबर 2 once again questions this entire theory of sanitizing space. Paragraph number 3 says the other likely targets of human exploration, development, and settlement, our moon and asteroids, exist in a desiccated, radiation soaked realm of hard vacuum and extreme temperature variation that would kill nearly anything. It's also important to note that many international competitors will ignore the demands of this protection extremists in any case. For example, China recently sent a therium to the moon and germinated a plant seed with unsurprisingly no protest from its own community. In contrast, when it was recently revealed that a researcher had surreptitiously smuggled super resilient microscopic tardigrades aboard the ill-fated Israeli Bereshit lunar probe, a firestorm was unleashed within the space community. So basically, ऑथर यहाँ पे दो एग्जाम्पल दे रहा है. वन, इट इज टॉकिंग अबाउट इजराइल, वन इज टॉकिंग अबाउट चाइना. चाइना जब स्पेस में कुछ भेजा था तो उसको लेके कोई कुछ प्रोटेस्ट नहीं किया, बट जब इसराइल ने कुछ भेजा था तो उसका जो कम्युनिटी है उसमें बहुत काइंड ऑफ प्रोटेस्ट होने लगा. सो देयर इज अ डिस्क्रिमिनेंसी बिटवीन द रिएक्शंस दैट पीपल पुट और द कंट्रीज पुट in different particular spheres. So कोई particular standardized particular protest या standardized particular norm है ही नहीं इस बारे में. And this is another reason why the author questions the sanitization wala part. In last paragraph, it says NASA's previous human exploration I hope everybody has found this line. NASA's previous human exploration efforts made no serious attempts at sterility with little notice. As the Mars expert Robert Zubrin noted in the national reviews, US lunar landings did not leave the campsites cleaner than they found it. Apollo's bacteria infested litter included bags of feces, forcing NASA's proposed Mars exploration to do better. Scrubbing everything and hauling out all the trash would destroy NASA's human exploration budget and encroach on the agency's other directorates too. Getting future astronauts of Mars is enough of a challenge, and without trying to tote weeks of waste along as well. So the authors once again kind of continues with the same topic. वो बोल रहा है कि पहले भी ऐसे पर्टिकुलर मिशंस हो चुके हैं जहाँ पे कंटामिनेशन हुआ है, जहाँ पे से फॉर एग्जांपल गंदगी फैला है, ठीक है, बट उससे ज्यादा कुछ हार्म होने वाला नहीं है. एंड if we keep focusing on this particular harm, the budget of other things will be affected. And NASA को दूसरा particular बारे में सोचना पड़ेगा. Anyways, NASA has to spend a lot of particular money getting people out of Mars. So this kind of concerns can add more pressure to NASA. Come to the last paragraph. It says a reasonable compromise is to continue on the course laid out by the US government and the National Research Council, which proposed a system of zones on Mars, some for science, only for habitation, and some for resource exploitations. This approach minimizes contamination, maximizes scientific exploration. So, author is in favor of somewhat, say, for example, segregating Mars in terms of various zones. कोई जगह सिर्फ टूरिज्म के लिए होगा, कोई से फॉर एग्जांपल हैबिटेशन के लिए होगा, कोई सिर्फ साइंटिफिक रिसर्च के लिए होगा. This approach minimizes contamination, maximizes some scientific exploration. So this proves that the author is in favor of this. Mars represents a stark choice of diverging human futures. When we turn inward, pursuing ever more limited futures, while we wait whichever natural or man-made disasters will eradicate our species on life on Earth. So ये line बहुत important है. It kind of completely tells us that the author is not at all in fear of preserving space and all these things. It talks about exploring and finding more kind of about the space, albeit the particular pollution that happens. It says, alternatively, we can choose to propel our biosphere further into the solar system, simultaneously protecting our home planets and providing backup plan for the only life we know exists in the universe. Author बोल रहे हैं हमें ढूंढना पड़ेगा क्योंकि यही से फॉर एग्जांपल अर्थ में लाइफ है. For backup, we should kind of explore the space. Are the lives on Earth worth less than some hypothetical microbe lurking under Martian rocks? So the paragraph says, the author ends with this particular note that हम लोग का life काफी important है, काफी ज़्यादा important है in compared to some particular life which is there in Mars, जिसका अभी भी कोई particular existence मिला ही नहीं है. So the paragraph once again is uh, not so difficult, but given the subject is regarding Mars space exploration, so it might kind of cause problem for people who are not accustomed with this kind of topics. चलिए हम क्वेश्चन पे चले जाते हैं. क्वेश्चन नंबर 1 और क्वेश्चन नंबर 5 here it says that the author is unlikely to disagree with any of the following except. Please look at this particular word very carefully. In the question it says unlikely to disagree. So what do you mean by unlikely to disagree? Maybe somewhat agree. Now then it once again says with any of the following except. मतलब we once again come back to disagree वाला particular part. Coming to question number 5, option number A says the proposal for the zonal segregation of Martian space into regions for different purposes. If we come to the last paragraph, the author does talk about this particular part and hence वो इसके साथ disagree नहीं करेगा. If we come to option number B, it says that while NASA's earlier missions were not ideal in their approach to space contamination, they likely did no grave damage. Once again, if we come to this particular part, it gives us this particular answer, cleaner than they found it. Apollo's bacteria infested litter bags, including bags of feces. So this particular line tells us that पहले भी ऐसे हुआ है, but उसका कुछ ज़्यादा effect पड़ा नहीं है. Option number C says space contamination should be minimized until the possibility of life on astronomical body being explored is ruled out. तो देखिए ऑथर ये कभी नहीं बोल रहा है, ऑथर ये नहीं बोल रहा है कि स्पेस कंटामिनेशन शुड बी मिनिमाइज्ड, बिकॉज वो बोल रहा है कि हमें एक्सप्लोर करना चाहिए काइंड ऑफ स्पेस कंटामिनेशन और नो कंटामिनेशन, बिकॉज वहाँ पे कोई लाइफ है ही नहीं, अभी तक कुछ फाउंड हुआ ही नहीं है. एंड हेंस ऑप्शन नंबर सी के साथ ऑथर डिसएग्री करेगा. And hence my correct answer for this one is option number C. अगर डी को भी चेक कर देंगे, the exorbitant price, exorbitant cost of continuing to keep the space environment pristine may be unsustainable. It is also kind of given in the paragraph. If you come to the first paragraph itself, it says NASA incurs great expenses sterilizing robotic probes in order to prevent the contamination of entirely theoretical biosphere. तो अगर इसको चेक करेंगे तो इसके हिसाब से हम ऑप्शन नंबर डी को भी वहां पे एग्रीमेंट हिसाब से ले सकते हैं. सो ऑप्शन नंबर सी इज द ओनली डिसएग्रीमेंट वाला पार्ट, एंड हिंस 5C इज द करेक्ट आंसर. Moving on to question number 6, it says the author mentions all the following reasons to dismiss concerns about contaminating Mars. To option number A, it says the lack of evidence of living organisms on Mars makes possible contamination from earthly microbes a moot point. So what do you mean by a moot point? Moot point का मतलब हो जाएगा insignificant point. So yes, so this cannot be a particular exact answer. It is this is a reason why the author can dismiss the concerns over contaminating Mars. So moot point मतलब insignificant point. सो मार्स में लैक ऑफ ऑर्गेनिजम्स है, नहीं है, अगर से पर वहां पे ऑर्गेनिजम्स नहीं है, लाइफ नहीं है, तो किसको हम कंटामिनेट करेंगे? तो ऑप्शन नंबर ए इज कैंसल्ड. ऑप्शन नंबर बी सेज एफर्ट्स टू कंटेन कंटामिनेशन इन मार्स आर लाइकली टू बी डिरेल as competitor countries may not follow strict similar restrictions. Yes, when we have this particular example of Israel and China, we come to this particular paragraph, Israel and China, it clearly says that there is no such particular established standardized norms regarding how different countries will behave to this. And this can also one of the reasons why you can dismiss the concerns regarding contaminating Mars. So option number B is not the correct answer. C says the use of similar probes on astronomical bodies like moon have had little effect on the environment. So this can be, say, for example, if you go to this particular question, the use of similar probes on astronomical bodies like moon have had little effect on the environment. There is no mention of such similar probes on astronomical bodies like the moon and things like that. And hence, this is not one of the concerns by which we can dismiss this particular thing. D says that similar explorations have already contaminated pristine space of space environment. This is also found in this given paragraph. If you come to this particular paragraph, penultimate paragraph, it does talk about the same contamination has already happened. This can be a reason why the author can dismiss the concern. But option number C, which says that the use of similar probes on astronomical bodies like the moon, now there is no such particular mention of similar probes, and hence option number C is not the correct answer. So this one is not one of the reasons that the author will concern. Moving to question number 7, it says the author's overall tone in the first paragraph can be described as. देखिए फर्स्ट पैराग्राफ जो है यहाँ पे ऑथर expresses his strong reserve regarding so much of particular spreading contamination to Mars and kind of other particular spatial particular bodies. बिकॉज जहाँ पे लाइफ है ही नहीं, हम किसको बचाएंगे बाई काइंड ऑफ लिमिटिंग द कंटामिनेशन, वहाँ पे अगर कोई होगा तभी ना हम बचा पाएंगे. Author is very skeptical regarding this particular part. So question number 7, option number A, which says skeptical, is the correct answer. Skeptical about the excessive efforts of sanitized planets where life has not yet been proven to exist. Option number A is the correct answer. Now बाकी जो तीन वर्ड है उसको भी हम एक बार चेक कर लेंगे. B says equivocal, मतलब maintaining diplomacy, maintaining equal kind of neutrality. तो यहाँ पे न्यूट्रलिटी ऑथर मेंशन नहीं कर रहा है, वो डायरेक्टली बोल रहा है कि ये से फॉर एग्जांपल इलॉजिकल है. इंडिफरेंट टू द एलिटिज्म ऑफ ए फ्यू साइंटिस्ट, नहीं वो इंडिफरेंट नहीं है, वो क्रिटिसाइज कर रहा है. एंड हिंस ऑप्शन नंबर सी इज इनकरेक्ट. अप्रूविंग द अमाउंट ऑफ मनी नासा स्पेंड्स, तो अप्रूव तो वो कभी नहीं कर रहा है. एंड हिंस ऑप्शन नंबर सी, ऑप्शन नंबर डी इज ऑल्सो नॉट द करेक्ट आंसर. So question number C, my correct answer is option number A, that is skeptical about the effective about the excessive effort of sanitized planets where life has not yet been proven to exist. So question number 7, correct answer is option number A. Is everybody clear with question number 7? Okay, the last question, it is saying the contrasting reactions to the Chinese and Israeli contaminations lunar space. देखिए Chinese and Israeli lunar space आपको कहाँ मिल जाएगा? If you come to this third paragraph, it says the other likely targets of human exploration, development, and settlement, our moon and the asteroids exist. ठीक है. तो ये जो part है, here you find the example of China, and here you find the example of Israel. So basically, if you read this paragraph, what does it tell you? चाइना ने जो स्पेस में कुछ भेजा था उसमें कोई प्रोटेस्ट हुआ ही नहीं, बट इसराइल ने जब कुछ भेजा था उसमें अपना कम्युनिटी में बहुत प्रोटेस्ट हो गया. So there is no kind of standardized particular kind of systems or rules, uh, or international particular rules that are laid out in terms of how to react and what to do in this particular cases. And hence, if you go to the options, option number C says indicate that national scientists may have different sensitivities to issues of biosphere protection. So question number 8, correct answer will be option number C, because it says that नेशनल साइंटिस्ट में कितना से फॉर एग्जाम्पल क्या रिएक्ट करेगा इसमें कोई गारंटी नहीं है. एंड ऑप्शन नंबर सी इज द करेक्ट आंसर. बाकी ए बी डी अगर आप चेक कर लेंगे, आर वैलिड एज द कंटामिनेशन ऑफ लूनर एनवायरनमेंट फ्रॉम एनिमल सोर्सेज इज फार ग्रेटर फ्रॉम प्लैनेट्स. ये पैराग्राफ में बोला नहीं गया है. पैराग्राफ सेज देयर वाज से फॉर एग्जांपल discrepancy in the reactions. Are evidence of China's reasonable approach? No, it doesn't talk about China's reasonable approach. China के बारे में reasonable approach के बारे में कुछ भी mention नहीं है. D says reveal global biases prevalent in attitudes towards different countries. ये हो भी सकता है because it is talking about China and Israel. But when you talk about reveals biases, there is nothing such kind of words like bias or such discrimination that has been mentioned here. Now, if you go to this particular part, the third paragraph, last part, it says, a firestorm was unleashed within the space community. Okay. Now, when you're talking about this particular line, it is not kind of pointing out at some particular bias which exists. And hence, question number 8, option number C is the correct answer. Okay. Overall, this was a difficult to do in the sense that the questions were all a bit kind of twisted. It was not difficult to read, but once again, the subject was quite critical by nature. Okay, we will stop here for the day. We have analyzed both the particular RCs. We will kind of continue with the previous year questions with 2023 RCs. Thank you.